Kia ora, no mai, welcome to The Elephant. I'm Miriama Kamo.
And I'm Mark Kreisel. There's an elephant in the room, and we need to talk about it.
Well, I'm not a woman because I don't perceive myself to be a woman.
To me, a woman is someone who walks through the world in that truth respectfully, and she alone holds the right to define herself.
We're the ones with the wombs, the breasts, and that function in that way, and we feel unsafe.
Well, my intention as a human would never to someone to feel unsafe in my presence.
You know, I'll probably be vilified for just having an opinion, and I'm not even a trans woman.
Are you anti-trans?
I feel that what we're against is being attacked.
This week we're talking about women, wahine, and asking, what is womanhood? Is it identity or biology?
For me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
So what is that?
As a woman.
Yep, this is tricky territory. Feelings around this run deep.
That's my point. I'll always be female biologically, but for all intents and purposes, I am male. Yeah. And you can't change that.
You're not male. Your social role is that of a male, but biological reality is that you're a female.
Yeah, and it's something you've been asking us to tackle, so we're giving it a shot.
We're not here to settle it, just to open it up, sit in the discomfort, and ask the hard questions.
Yeah, because what actually makes someone a woman? Biology, lived experience, something deeper, maybe political?
New Zealand's first proposed bill defines it that way. Woman as an adult human biological female, and man as an adult human biological male in law. Whatever you think, many people now struggle to answer this.
The world's most controversial question, bizarrely, has become, what is a woman?
To be honest, Sean, that question's come slightly out of left field for me. Biology, sex, gender. People define themselves. People define their own genders.
Okay, so as you can see, it's not easy. Later, Stuart Nash tried and put his foot firmly in his mouth.
Well, last time I said something like this, I got in trouble. A woman is a person with a pair of.
Okay, pretty sure we're more than that. Meanwhile, phrases like people who give birth have sparked backlash.
More than 11% of Australians with uteruses suffer from endometriosis. I thought Australians with uteruses, there's a word to describe them, isn't it? Oh, that's right, women. They're called women, for goodness sake. Australians with uteruses.
It's an argument that has split the feminist movement.
Do not call me transphobic. You are transphobic.
On one side, trans women say exclusion is discrimination. On the other, some feminists argue womanhood's being redefined without their say, that it's no longer fair or safe.
Don't you say you're like us. You're not like us. You're not like anything else, and that's fine, but that is the path you've chosen. It is a frontier. It is uncharted territory.
Feminists with such views are often called, and this is a really tricky one because a lot of people find this very offensive, but TERFs. Now, that is short for trans exclusionary radical feminists. It's a label that many find derogatory.
We are left-wing liberal feminists. We haven't just all of a sudden taken some magic pill to make us Nazis and bigots and start hating marginalised people.
Add in toxic femininity, old school gender roles, and it's no wonder womanhood feels unsettled.
Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling reignited it all.
J.K. Rowling, the very well-known transphobe who also happens to be an author.
Rowling says she supports trans people but believes biological sex matters. Some call her brave, others a bigot.
And it's played out here too when anti-trans activist Posie Parker came to Auckland.
The Auckland rally turned chaotic. Protesters, tomato juice, police. She left the country early. The backlash was huge.
In April this year, the UK Supreme Court ruled that biological sex is binary in law, meaning women-only protections apply to biological females.
And in sport, it's become a flashpoint.
From New Zealand's first transgender weightlifter, Laurel Hubbard, at the Tokyo Olympics, to Leah Thomas, a trans swimmer who made waves winning US college titles and copped backlash for it. Each case lights a fire over fairness and inclusion.
Everybody has the right to identify who they are, period. That's a human rights issue.
And then there's Kristen Worley, part Kiwi, part Canadian, the first trans athlete to undergo Olympic gender testing. She challenged the system and won a landmark human rights case that changed global sport.
I don't support the language of TERFs. For me, at the end of the day, it's about participation. We want to be able to say to sport, we understand these things, but we want you now, World Athletics, World Aquatics, World Cycling, UCI, and so on, who are the top three big engines of the Olympic movement, and along with other sports, to use this opportunity to change the design of their sports. So this is the kind of the next evolution. And sport hasn't kept up. Sport's trying to stay back in its conservative space.
So, yeah, emotional, political, legal, and far from over.
Absolutely, because when it comes to womanhood, we're not just asking what it means.
We're asking who gets to decide.
So joining us now from Tokyo is Dame Susan Devoy, former Race Relations Commissioner and one of the world's squash greats. It's absolutely wonderful to see you, Dame Susan. Thank you so much for joining us on The Elephant. We're going to start straight away with the question, which is, what is a woman?
Well, it's a tricky question, a complex one to ask. If you'd asked me when 40 years ago when I was 20 or so, I probably would have definitely said you were a woman by your biological definition. You were born a woman, born a female. But now in my 60s, I think you can be a woman by your identity. And I think that's pretty out there. But it is pretty out there. Most of my friends would probably disagree. But I don't think you have to just be a biological woman to identify as a woman. That's as simple as I could put it, really.
This is a subject that consumes people across the world, and it affects things that, like sports, which is, where you have distinguished yourself. What do you make about the debate over what is a woman where sports is concerned?
Oh, that's really tricky. Not so long ago, I was asked to sign a petition, that transgender women shouldn't be able to compete in female sports. And, I declined, politely declined, I might add. And I think people were aghast that I, having been at the top of my sport, could possibly think that it was okay for women who were assigned males at birth to be able to compete in men's sport. I don't know enough about the scientific history about all the reasoning why they should. But I'm open to still having that discussion. So I'm not, hard and fast. What worries me and concerns me most is the way that these people, these women, because I believe that trans women are women, regardless of what it is, are so demonized,
Do you understand the concerns, though, around fairness in sports, around safety?
Yeah, I understand that too, particularly around the safety issue. I'm just wondering if are we opening I suppose we are opening a Pandora's box because we've got to have the conversation about it, don't we?
Mm.
I don't necessarily have the correct answer. I'm erring on the side of I haven't seen too many real life examples if we're talking about the Olympics or other things, but the debate's still going on about the medical science around it. So I'm going to just err on the side of caution and sit on the bloody fence before I get my head chopped off.
I'm not going to quite let you get away with that, Susan. I want to ask you how you would feel as a competitor going up against a trans competitor in your sport.
I just want to know that it was a physical level playing field.
Yeah.
And I think that's the scary thing in sport is that people are concerned that because you are biologically, by birth a male, that you have an unfair physical advantage. That's I think what people haven't been able to quantify exactly. I'm so competitive that if I lost and I knew someone had more testosterone, which would probably be bloody hard to have more than me, but that's what would concern me.
Susan, I think what you're talking about is trying to find a middle ground where we respect everybody. How do you create spaces where both sides feel safe when we talk about, say, changing rooms or bathrooms or where they come together? Is that achievable, do you think?
Oh, I think it's going to take a lot of grown-up conversations because, generally people sit on one side of the fence. This is a very black and white debate for a lot of people. You either are or you aren't. And I think there's very few that sit in the middle, which is why it's hard to change people's, points of view. I couldn't possibly imagine what it would be like to have been born and felt you are completely opposite to the sex that you were assigned at birth. And I think that's what we're having a conversation about, is about, how would you feel if that was you? I can't imagine living like that.
There's women, biological women, who feel that their voices are being lost in this whole debate, and that they would like to just be able to identify as women without carrying any baggage. What are your thoughts around that?
I think that's fair enough. I think that what happens is in difficult conversations like this, there's always fringe groups that make it really difficult for, both sides. Everyone's entitled to have an opinion on something. It's just being able to have a discussion or not vilifying groups or people. I'll probably be vilified for just having an opinion and I'm not even a trans woman. So you can imagine what it's like, can't you? I just think, it's brave to have these conversations. It's brave to have a program about it. That's what I think. I think you have to be an upstander, not a bystander in this world. And that's probably one of the things I learned most at the Commission, actually, is race relations, that, it's not up to me when I was the Race Relations Commissioner to fight racism. It was up to everybody. And that was the saying I loved most. You've got to be an upstander, not a bystander.
That's a great place to leave it. Susan, thank you so much for your time.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Dame Susan Devoy. Absolutely fantastic to have you on The Elephant. We appreciate you joining us from Tokyo. Now to really dive into this complex and important elephant topic, what is a woman?
And to explore what truly defines a woman, we've got an incredible panel ready to unpack all sides of this debate.
Yeah, so we're joined now by Dr. Debbie Hayton from Bristol in the UK, a teacher, journalist and author. Debbie transitioned in 2012 and has been involved with the transgender debate since 2016. Kia ora, Debbie, lovely to have you here.
And also joining us remotely from Auckland is Mary Haddock-Staniland. She's a global executive after making history 5 years ago as New Zealand's first Chief People and Inclusion Officer and a proud Māori trans woman. Kia ora, Mary.
And in the studio we have Lindy Rose, a retired psychotherapist and member of the New Zealand Women's Rights Party. Thank you so much. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. We're so pleased to have the three of you in studio with us for The Elephant. But let's just jump straight in here. I want to ask each of you, and we'll start with you, Lindy. What is a woman?
Well, from my point of view, a woman is an adult human female. I feel that biology is very important, and that the trouble with when the gender and sex are not the same thing. And the trouble is that gender is overriding sex. And so we think it's very important to separate those things out.
Okay. And Mary?
To me, a woman is someone who chooses to be seen and treated as such by society. Someone who walks through the world in that truth respectfully, and she alone holds the right to define herself.
So it's identity for you. What is it for you, Debbie?
I used to agree with Lindy, and I'd like to agree with Lindy. I think what Lindy's saying is what a woman ought to mean. But I don't think that's what people actually mean when they use the word. What I think that people actually mean when they use the word woman, though, is a perception that we have of other people. We all know what a woman is when we see one. And I think that's the root of the word, and that's the root of the meaning.
So how would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm not a woman because I don't perceive myself to be a woman.
So you don't call yourself a woman then, Debbie?
Well, I don't, but other people do because they perceive me to be that.
Trans woman and woman are not the same thing. It's not all about my perception, nor yours or anybody's perception. There are some real biological realities to, giving birth, breastfeeding, all those bodily things that trans women can't do. But many people are identifying as trans women, and somehow we have to have a place for both.
I call myself a trans woman takatatoi, wahine tua, it's profound because we're, in my view, we're a targeted minority within a targeted minority. And every facet of a trans person's life is shaped by how the world sees and treats us, right? For brown and Pacifica trans women, it carries added weight. Our cultures once recognized and celebrated gender diversity as something sacred and actually very natural, Midi, as you all know. And over time, that understanding was lost or silenced and replaced simply by fear and by misunderstanding and a whole lot of rah-rah. Today, many of us I don't speak for every single Māori or trans woman in the world, absolutely not. But many of us live at the intersection of rediscovery and resistance and reclaiming what's actually always been ours while navigating systems and constructs and processes that don't always make room for us to stand fully in our truth, on our whenua, on our land, saying we are who we are, which is kind of tricky.
What about those shared spaces, though? I mean, Mary, are you wanting to use women's facilities, bathrooms, changing rooms, that sort of thing?
Well, the last time I caught a plane, and no matter where you sit on an aircraft, you're all sharing bathrooms, whether you're with, a group of people or, whoever, wherever. And I mean, it's been a long time since I was on a private jet, Mark, but, I think for me, I use a bathroom that's the most convenient. I am a trans woman. I present as a woman. I'm of no threat to anybody. I use a space that's comfortable. I mean, I never go into, gender neutral bathrooms, sure, but I absolutely use female bathrooms.
If we focus on bathrooms, I think we do bring it down a bit. I mean, not that it's not important, but things like actual changing rooms actually having to get naked in front of men because we can't complain. And I also feel like, Mary's an example of somebody who's probably the positive face of transgender women, sort of colourful and expressive and what everybody likes to say, look, it's just expressing themselves and individuals and all the rest of it. And the problem for us is that there's a whole lot of trans activists who aren't actually trans people, who are a completely different breed, who are very active in vilifying women. So we feel that the sort of trans community are presented as a very vulnerable group who we all have to sort of take care of somehow. And but the women are vilified. There's lots of unfair things going on that women who protest about it are called transphobic. It closes down the bigots, right wing. The vilification of women who are trying to protest about things that we are do badly affect women, and even things like, the annihilation of women's language and the Midwives' Council, where the words women and mother are deleted and replaced with, gender-neutral words. So there's a sense of annihilation that we experience that feels invisible.
So you feel unsafe. You cannot be a woman.
We feel unsafe. We feel that we're the ones that have to self-exclude ourselves, and that trans people are given the priority.
Well, my intention as a human would be for never to someone to feel unsafe in my presence. Quite the opposite, in fact. Naturally, you're going to use your common sense and gauge a situation. The essence of who I am and what I'm here to do as a change champion in the world is actually to create a space that's safe for all. And so, frankly, a lot of the trans activists in the world, I fundamentally don't agree with. I personally don't agree with. I mean, you have to reason and have some resilience and compassion, and remind yourself that actually I don't have to accept everything that everyone does. I don't need to be accepted, but it does come from a pillar of respect.
It's a nice idea, but I mean, your group, the Women's Rights Party, you meet in secret.
Well,
is that because you feel threatened?
I won't say we mostly meet online, but yes, if we're organising a speaker or a conference or anything, and having speakers come, which we are having right now, we have to be very secretive about the venue. And most of the time, a group of trans activists is a very famous, I won't name him actually, that it goes out on Twitter. You know what to do. And they all get together and write to the venue and say that these people are meeting, they're full of hate speech and transphobic and, against community standards. And if you don't pull out, we will vilify you and we'll make it public and we'll shame you.
These presumably are people who would say, that would call you a No, I know this is not
TERF.
a TERF. Yeah, it's not a term that you like, but TERF.
Yeah.
And I mean, what is your reaction when somebody labels you as a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist?
Yes. I feel that the word TERF is sort of making that everything we do is being all about trans, like women's rights. It's really secretly not about women's rights at all. It's really all about being anti-trans, as if everything is about
Are you anti-trans?
them. I feel there's what we're against is being attacked. We are against being, we feel attacked by the trans. We feel there's a competition. It feels there's a lack of respect for the women who were here first. And so we are anti that. We're anti-trans activism. We're anti the attack. So I'd say that. And so that gets interpreted as anti-trans when I think, if we can all work towards a middle ground.
Would you call Mary and Debbie women?
No, I'd call them trans women.
And how does that sit with you, Mary?
Well, I'm totally fine with that. What I want to say, and counter to what you were saying about your events, Lindy, I've been, I do a fair bit of speaking around the place, and I was actually at a corporate organisation where some information about me speaking at an event a couple of years ago was, and the company actually had to get security for me. Because there were teams outside the venue in Wellington to go from the hotel. Now, and I didn't personally feel a worry about it, but the organisation who booked me to speak did, because they were worried about my safety.
I, for example, have been trying to be cancelled from both sides of this debate. 5-6 years ago, it was the trans activist side who were writing to my employer, telling my employer to dismiss me from my role as a teacher because I was unsafe with trans children around. More recently, it's been the other side of the debate that's been contacting my employer and telling them that I'm a danger with children because I'm trans. So I'm getting this from both sides. And what I'm picking up is that everybody is frightened, and everybody is frightened that terms are going to be redefined to their disadvantage. So I think we need to just sometimes take a step back. Yes, I think shared humanity is important. I think common sense is important. But what I've learned over the last 2 or 3 years is what really matters when it comes to these definitions is our shared perception. So it's not whether I think I'm a woman that matters. It's whether everybody else thinks I'm a woman. That's the key thing. And Lindy doesn't. So to Lindy, I'm a man, and I'm quite happy with that. And I'm not trying to impose my definitions on Lindy.
Are trans women, Mary?
Yes, because yes, I think trans women are women. I mean, you can be two things in a roundabout way. We can hold two truths at once, and I think yes, trans women are women.
It's sort of interesting because what Mary's saying about people can be different things in different circumstances. Like, just meeting you on the street, Mary, I probably, or even in the toilet, I don't think I'd have a big reaction. But then so I don't know either about any of your surgeries, so I know nothing about your bodies. But if I'm suddenly encountering somebody who might call themselves a trans woman, but they're naked and a penis inside a changing room, they're a man. So there is the bit of me that goes, no, trans women are men. But also I don't want to sort of, once you start going down that alley, then that was going back to that sort of the war again.
And what you're saying could be hurtful as well. If Mary's made a big decision to live as a woman, that's a big commitment.
Yes. The trouble is, there's a lot of not respectful people, because I'm hearing you two talk very much about how being respectful. And the trouble is we're dealing with men who are not respectful, who are taking advantage of the situation because of the gender self-ID. And I don't even know how many New Zealanders know there's a gender self-ID.
When you say men, you're talking about people who identify as trans women.
People who may pretend to use the situation, because once men can say they're women, just by saying so, a man can say it. So there may be people who...
Why would they do that?
To access women's spaces. There's the sense that there's a lack of discrimination or boundaries with this gender self-ID, which didn't used to be the case. Then anybody can take advantage of it, and that becomes a problem.
I was actually part of the Department of Internal Affairs select committee and grouping to endorse that movement a couple of years ago. But look, I think we've made extraordinary gains in this country in the last century, well, actually globally. And yes, in too many places, rights are wound back in real time. And I think it's not a reason for fracture. I think it's a reason to actually double down on kotahitanga. And that means standing together on purpose with a united vision. I think when we turn on each other, and the other could be anyone or anything, we dim our own light. And our strength has to be always coming for, in mine anyway, a mana enhancing environment, not mana hoarding, as my mother would reference. Whakapanangatanga, from listening across differences and from showing up with love and aroha and courage, even when it's uncomfortable.
But there is deep, deep hurt on all sides here. I mean, the sentiments you express are admirable, but I mean, you must have seen this as well, Debbie. There's deep hurt on both sides. People really feel this debate. Even when we started out saying we were going to do this, everybody's going, careful, careful where you go. And this must be your lives. You must live this every day.
Well, as I said, I think the problem is fear. Everybody is worried that somebody else is going to change definitions to their advantage and our disadvantage. I was frightened as well at one point, but it's realizing that there is a common shared understanding and treating each other as human beings, respecting each other and deferring to each other is really important in a society.
One of the things about the trans activists is that it's also, one of the really, in some ways, my biggest beef is that organisations have come on board. So, the police, the Human Rights Commission here is in terms of changing the word sex to gender, so that sex protections of women are deleted because gender overrides sex, or schools where it starts being taught in schools as an ideology that you can be born in the wrong body. Now that may be a debatable thing, but from my point of view, it's a way of understanding.
Well, it's not a debate. It happened to me, so
yeah, it's an understanding of how you feel, but it's not scientifically true. And so we would say biology is science, and but it's taught in schools as if it's true. It's not taught as if it's one more way of thinking. It's taught as if it's true, and children are taught too young to start questioning.
Again, I've worked with the Ministry of Education to encourage conversations like this in schools, Lindy. The push to exclude trans people is harmful, and there's no place for it in an environment that's where we're at. I was born in the wrong body, and I stand unapologetically on my whenua to say that to be true. I live a life that I did not choose to live. If I had a choice, would I be like my twin brothers or my sisters or my brothers? Abso-bloody-lutely I would be, because of the pain, the heartache, the judgment, and throw into the mix a public persona that has been horrific. I think the mission to create an environment where diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is the action that needs to happen, and belonging, that's the outcome that we should all be striving for.
Well, I think that women are being excluded. That those of us who, gender critical, we're called, are excluded. We're told often we have to self-select out because we are, divisive. We're the divisive ones. We're the bigoted ones who are not including trans people. But somehow our view is excluded.
My personal view is that if you choose a gender that works for you, and you're not offending, you're not upsetting, you're not taking someone's light away from someone else, then do you, boo. But be aware that the offence could be tricky, and you could end up facing some backlash or some ill will of others, which, again, isn't my vibe.
It's so complex, though, because I think it's all very well saying, if you meet somebody in the street and, you do you, but it's these areas where biology does matter. I think most of the women in the world are the people who, we're the ones with the wombs, the breasts, and that function in that way. And I suppose there's something about the diminishing of that. There's our issue. So there are times in which it really does matter. Sex matters. And so there's the everyday matters where times where, in fact, you can just enjoy the other person being who they are. But there are times when it really does matter. And so that's why you can't just say it's it's universal
What's
somehow.
your greatest fear in all of this?
That we are losing out, that our protections as women, as smaller beings, who, as acknowledgements of all those things are being taken away. That is happening. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of vilification, a lot of fear of being cancelled if you don't toe the line.
We do have to wrap up in just a moment, but we're keen just to get your sort of final thoughts. What each of you would like to communicate in this episode to those who are listening or watching. Lindy, what would you say?
I feel that the gender critical women have been vilified. So I'm hoping that people can have an empathetic point of view that we are suffering real losses in various areas. People know about sports and various other things, but that the loss, the way we're vilified and the way of the loss of language is a real, we feel quite persecuted, and we feel we haven't had a lot of support from media particularly and things like that. So I think it's great that you're doing this program. And I'd like to find some middle ground where there was no longer a war, and I don't know where that is quite either yet. But I believe in reality, mutual reality.
Thanks, Lindy.
Mary?
Oh, look, I think it's a strong place, and it's been a theme of what I've been talking about. It's a true act of listening is an act of courage. You know, I think it asks us to pause on our own BS, own our own stuff, set aside any egos or any agendas, and make space for humanity and actually respectful conversations. I think we approach different spaces and places with, compassion over competition. Something, and Lindy has said it, that middle ground. I think ignorance doesn't disappear through argument. It actually dissolves through connection. And I think a space where you bring a curious mindset, but stand the ground that you're on and be respectful.
And Debbie, you seem to have found the perfect middle ground where you've decided it's up to someone else to decide who you are.
But that's the way we've always done it for everybody else. We live in society with each other, and we're all subject to each other. That's the way human beings are. But what's been really good here for me has been the opportunity to listen to Lindy, listen to Mary, and to think, and now I'm going to go and think about what both have said. And I think if we spent a lot more time doing that and a little less time making statements without really thinking about the people who are receiving those statements, I think the world would be a better place.
Can I just add to that? Because I love that you've just said that. But, what matters is that we stay in this conversation, and that even when it's bloody hard, even when it's uncomfortable, that is where the road hits the rubber, and that friction becomes less friction. So we're never going to be frictionless, because we build a society grounded in our own values, our own beliefs, our own wants and desires. I think if we did that together, maybe not arm in arm, but if we together with the want for true respect, I think, holy shit, we could all just solve the problems of the world this call.
Love it. So thank you all so very much. This is a tricky one, but this felt like a good and useful conversation. So hopefully it'll have that effect for others who are listening as well. But ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. We're so grateful that you're all here to share your views. There was a lot on the table there to consider. We were so worried about this episode. We were concerned really about getting it wrong, creating harm. But I learned a lot from being able to just listen to them all.
Yeah, this old dog certainly learned a lot from that.
What's a standout for you?
The standout was I kind of felt Debbie was really interesting because Debbie to me presents as a woman, the hair, the name, all that kind of thing. But I love the way she kind of throws it back at us. Like, I'm happy with whoever I am, but it's up to you, and I'm happy with how you perceive me as well. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if we're any closer to solving this.
Yeah, but maybe the point is that we're not meant to solve it. We're meant to just stay in the conversation, which is what all of them challenged us to do. Let's just keep on talking about this so that people do feel like they're being heard, that they're being held, that they're being listened to, that they can be the whole of who they are, which is so much of what we want to achieve through these conversations.
I like the idea that you take people for how you find them. And it's become more and more difficult because we're so separated. We're on our own different social media pages or silos. And I like the idea that when we meet in a place that you can listen to other people and you can make your mind up. And I think that debate was far more respectful than I expected it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know if we changed anybody else's minds, but, I think we were opened up to some new ideas that we may have thought we would have run away from in the past.
Yeah, I think so. So it's about respect. At the end of the day, it is about respect.
And celebrating our differences.
Yeah.
As the French say, vive la différence. And I like that. I like the idea that we're all different, we're not the same. It would be just too boring.
All right, that's it from us for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. You can catch us on the New Zealand Herald homepage, YouTube, iHeart, and your favourite social media platforms.
The elephant in the room, time to talk.
E te whānau, ngā mihi nui, e kōna.